Worldwide, there is a constant struggle for protection of animal rights. In Pakistan, Ayesha Chundrigar is the founder of First Animal Rescue and Shelter. She's encouraging the concepts of empathy and kindness for all living beings by becoming a savior for animals enduring abuse, negligence, and cruelty by humans. For her extraordinary work, she has received Pride of Pakistan and Hum Woman Leader Awards. Let's hear from her about her life journey, from being a shy, introvert young girl to starting first of its kind animal rescue in Pakistan.
I was born in Karachi and I have essentially lived in Karachi for most of my life, not all of it, but most of it. My early life, you can say it was the life of a very shy, stammering, uncertain introvert, I guess, to put it mildly. I spent a lot of my time by myself. And I spent a lot of time sort of with my nose in books or daydreaming or talking to my imaginary friends or hanging out with my animals. I was you could say I was a very quiet child, because not just because I was shy, but because I couldn't comprehend the world. I did not realize until later on in life that I actually suffered from severe depression since I was about 5 years old. Essentially, that was triggered by everything I would see on the roads around me. So I would see a donkey being beaten when dragging a cart, or I would see a child my age begging for money. And, he didn't have not even quarter as much as I did. The donkey, I don't know what he did wrong. I would see dogs limping on the road or puppies being orphaned and looking for their mummies and crying. And I would just sit in the car and I would go out, I'd be cycling or something. I would see all of this and I couldn't quite grasp why this was the case in the world and how people could just turn a blind eye to it. So it sort of had a very difficult physical and emotional toll on my little 5-year-old self, because I couldn't grapple with this reality. Like, I couldn't understand why things were the way they were in the world. My biggest thing was that I feel like when I would see the pain of, say, an animal, I would feel physically the same pain. So it's like actually my bones and my body would start responding in the same way. So I guess you can sense, so I tended to sort of keep to myself, and I would read books and I would just write in my journals about, ways that I would like to help and things that I would like to do. And when I would grow up, and ways of being and what I thought a moral person was. And I think from the age of 5, I sort of wrote all these thoughts, and I was very much into, I was a philosopher and a thinker from that age. I was very fascinated, I guess you can say, with the idea of death, not in a negative or a dark way, but in a very uplifting way, because I always thought that, if you know you're going to die, then you have everything to live for. So for me, it was always about, what do I have to live for today, and how can I leave the world a better place than I found it when I first came into it. And I think I wrote this in one of my journals when I was about 6 or 7, and I've sort of stuck to that way of being my entire life. So literally nothing has shifted. I didn't know what course I was, or what route I was going to take in my life. I just knew that whatever I was going to do, it had to be packed with meaning, or I wasn't going to do it. If it wasn't meaningful, I wouldn't do it, because I don't believe in living life in a shallow I've been rescuing animals, I guess, off the road since I was about 5 years old. I used to make my mom put up schools for all the maids and drivers' kids in the area, so that they could learn everything that I learned in school. Because again, I couldn't understand why there was so much unfairness. How come I had more than they had? So it was always like that for me. I started volunteering at my first orphanage when I was about 10. And I was doing a lot of volunteer work in all my free time. I wouldn't really go out much or hang out with friends much. I would sort of go and immerse myself in people that needed me, I guess, or animals that needed me. So I was always one for the broken souls. If I would see an orphan puppy or a little kitten that needed help, I would bring the animal home. I would rescue those colored chicks, those baby colored chicks. They have terrible, terrible lives. So I would go and I would pick them up from Bori Bazaar and all other places and bring them home. The men selling, little birds locked in those little cages on the streets. I would just buy the birds and I would release all of them at the beach. So I would do whatever I could from a very young age to, do whatever I can. So I think it was more, it was more that if I was also in their place, you would want to know that someone is going to come and make it okay. And for majority of the animals, and for all of our animals in this country in particular, nobody has ever come to make it okay.
Talking about your love for animals, does it run in the family? And how did incidents in your childhood led you to become who you are today?
As far as my family goes, it's really funny because no one in my family are animal lovers. So I don't think this is a genetic thing. I'm the only one who kind of did all of this as a kid, and I'm the only one in my family who genuinely loves animals the way I do. Other than that, my parents got divorced when I was really young. I've been through severe traumatic experiences as a child. There were many traumatic experiences in my childhood as well that went on for a long, long time. Other than that, I have two sisters who are older to me. I was not close to them as a child, again, because I was quite the loner. As I grew up, I became a lot closer to them. And as far as education goes, I went to the Convent of Jesus and Mary in Karachi, which I did not like, to be honest, because it was a very rigid school, and it sort of, I think, stamped out a lot of my creativity, which I feel like all the schools I went to in Pakistan did that. Because then I went to Head Start and Probels in Islamabad for 3 years, and I was severely bullied. So then I was in Islamabad for 3 years, and then after that I went up to study in England. So I got a full scholarship to go over there. I did my undergraduate degree in English literature and philosophy. I did exceptionally well. I feel like I kind of thrived in college because I kind of did what I really enjoyed doing. Like my writing and all wasn't appreciated as much in school, because again, I feel like the schools over here, at least in my day, they really stamped out a lot of creativity, and it did not encourage difference. And I was sort of made to feel ashamed for being different. But when I went away to study at college, I was still very, very shy, but I sort of started finding myself quite a bit, and I realized it's okay to be different, and it's okay to be, the way I am, because I wasn't I don't really fit into any category that people would like to put me in. So, and studying what I studied, English literature and philosophy, was probably the best decision I could ever take, because those subjects just sort of opened my mind and expanded my world in a way that nothing possibly ever has. And I still study philosophy to this day, and I read about 8 books I read about 4 to 5 books a month standard ever since. So I've never stopped. And then I did my master's in international broadcast journalism, because I thought I'm going to, hopefully become a journalist. I'm going to report on humanitarian issues, and, I wanted to really make a difference in the world. But then I realized that really wasn't my cup of tea, because rather than reporting on the stories, I would prefer to be the one to actually make the change in the stories. So I actually did journalism for a while, and then I was severely depressed when I was living in London. I was there for a while, and I was getting a few very good gigs. I got a few good gigs in modeling as well. So I was going to start modeling over there just to make some, extra money and at least get stuff going while I try to push off my journalism career. But then I just thought, I can keep pursuing this, and it's really great, and I can make a lot of money and live a very glamorous life, or I can move back with pretty much nothing, but actually come back to make a difference, because whatever I was doing, it really wasn't making the kind of difference that I wanted to make. I wanted to be in the middle of the action to make the difference, because I felt like that was where I belonged. So I took a very difficult decision to sort of give up everything I'd worked really hard for, and I just decided to move back after about 6.5 years of being away. Yeah, and then I came back, and then I was still working on documentaries, internationally and locally, and I was doing another degree in humanistic psychotherapy and counseling, which really also helped me a lot. Like, I think all of my degrees have really helped me because they're all really versatile, and it's all about studying and understanding human behavior and the world. Then while I was doing that, I was, quietly doing my animal rescue work on the side. I've done a lot of, I worked in Kachi Abadi schools and orphanages and institutes for the special needs children for, I think, majority of my life, since I was about 10 years old. So when I came back, I continued that. So also, because when I was living in Islamabad, the 2005 earthquake happened over there. So a lot of refugees from Kashmir moved to Islamabad. So I sort of started manning this refugee camp for about 1 year. From 2005 to 2006, of 700 people. So I spent my Eid over there, and my days after school I would go over there, and I used to I feel like I was always a person that people could talk to, I guess. I was more I wasn't a therapist at that time, but I just felt like people needed to talk. So I just preferred spending my time over there. I felt like those kids and those people, they've lost everything, and they needed someone to talk to, and someone to bring hope over there. And it was, so I felt like, I could maybe have the capacity to help. Other than that, then when I was doing my third degree, I simultaneously was making documentaries. I was doing a part-time radio show over here, and I was also then I registered ACF at that time, because I was doing my work quietly on the side. But I was like, look, if I really want this to become something, I'm going to take the plunge, and I'm going to, start an organization. And the vision of ACF is to care for the most ignored and neglected and abused living beings of our society that, we kind of have given up on, and no one ever thinks about. Because I think from when I was very young, I would either hear from people that, well, the donkey is used to being beaten, so just there's nothing you can do about it. And I would always think, no one is used to suffering. That's a really stupidly uneducated and an extremely selfish response to give, that he is used to it, so it doesn't matter. And B, that there's nothing one can do about it. I think there's always something a person can do about it. Again, it's a very selfish, very lazy thing to say about something in the world, which I feel like is a lot of people's attitude. So that was something I couldn't sit with. So I was just like, so when I registered ACF and I started, everybody, including my family, were not okay with it. No one was supportive. It was literally just me, and everyone was just thinking, you're a silly little girl, you're only 23, what are you going to do? You don't know about this stuff. You don't know how the big bad world works, which I didn't. I was the most naive, idealistic girl that possibly was. But, and it was like, you can't do anything for animals in this country. You at least maybe focus on helping people. People are never going to be helped over here, so why are you even trying to help animals? So literally, I just got words of discouragement from every avenue. I mean, and from everything, attacking my intelligence to my experience, which I didn't have, to my abilities to do something, to the fact that the idea was the most ludicrous idea ever. So I kind of got that from all different avenues. But, I was kind of used to, I guess, being bullied and hearing negative stuff about myself. So I think I got used to also filtering it out, because I was so sure, there's some things, as I was saying, since I was 5 years old, there's some things which I've written down in my journals that have stuck with me since that time, since I was 5. And there are these very strong convictions about what being a morally upstanding person is. So for me, I didn't care what anybody said. I mean, it did get to me, there's no doubt, but I think I was also kind of used to people not believing in me or getting it. So I just thought, I'm going to do it anyway. And and then I just sort of, I was very reckless. I was very naive. I took the plunge into doing something that I had absolutely no idea about. I just knew that I had to help. It wasn't even about that, I love animals. I just thought, I just couldn't bear the injustice. It was like someone has to balance the scales of injustice in this country, and using excuses like, it's animals or it's never going to work is very cowardly. And I just don't believe in that. So, yeah, and then that's how that started. And ACF has been a journey unto itself. So that's pretty much like a whole other, I guess, like another story. But it's been really tough with ACF. Just establishing it, getting people to believe in me. I literally started with one Facebook page.
There are many cases of animal cruelty reported in Pakistan, and the ACF's vision of rescuing animals, rehabilitating them, improving their quality of life, and providing them a chance to live with dignity and respect is still a new concept for many people. There is a general lack of empathy. What problems has ACF faced and is still facing?
The journey was we had to move about 4 locations in 1 year because no one, even though legally we were covered and everything, people over here feel like you're committing a crime if you say that I want to help animals. And the crime is that how dare you care about animals. And I don't understand that, but that is the general Pakistani mentality that we constantly get. That how dare you help animals? What about the children suffering in Syria? Or what about, it's like, I'm not sure why we can't help both, but there's literally nobody doing anything, no one doing anything for animals. And what do people have against it? But it was almost like people took offense, and they still do when we stand up for the rights of dogs and so on. So, and
stuff like इंसान यहाँ रोल रहा है तो जानवर.
Yeah, I mean, that the amount of times I have heard that, like, if I could count, I would be a millionaire by now, because the amount of abuse I've had hurled at me just because of that. And like things like we've actually had guns pulled out at us. We've had poison meat thrown over the gate of one of our shelters because the people in the neighborhood who weren't even living there, there were factories around. So they shouldn't have a problem, but they deliberately just couldn't stand that we were taking care of the avara kutta and the ghada, and so they had to throw poison meat over the gate to kill our dogs, or they throw stones and rocks on our tin roof to break the roof and then complain that the dogs were yelling. Can you expect the dogs not to yell if they keep trying to break the roof with rocks? And then they had a problem because, we would spend money on giving treatment to donkeys. And they were like, how dare you do this? And at the same time, though, we would be also giving iftar during Ramzan and ration packages to the donkey owners. Because once again, I don't differentiate. I'd like to help everybody. But people couldn't understand this concept. And so then we were forced to move from place to place with like 250 animals. And barely any people. Mama, I'm on the phone.
Yes. Summer?
Hello?
Hello, yes. Please carry on.
Okay, so, so sorry, I lost my
sanctuary now. Your sanctuary, you said you moved from place to place. Where is it?
Yes. Okay, so we had to move 4 locations in 1 year. Essentially because people were very not happy with the work that we were doing. So it was more like although legally we were completely covered, and we had NOCs, we had leases, we rented places, we had everything above board, but it was just the intolerance of people for the work that we were doing that they just couldn't bear it. So literally, so this is what the poison meat and the guns being pulled out at us, and like the tala would be put on the gate from outside so that we couldn't get in. So the neighbors who wouldn't even live there, just the factories were there. The factory workers and all would just do these little things to upset us and to make our work even more difficult. And then So we had to keep moving. Then they threatened to file FIRs on us because, you've kept dogs and that leads to noise pollution. There was no noise pollution. If you're going to throw rocks at the dogs, do you expect the dogs to not bark? So literally, we were, and I was and at this time, I was literally alone. There was myself, one other girl, my manager who's still with me, Wajiha, and probably 2 other people. Otherwise, I had zero support, no parents, no family, no one who believed in me. So literally, and I didn't know what an FIR was either. I was really scared because I didn't know what to do or who to turn to or anything. And no one really wanted to help me because the standard excuse I would get is, well, just shut it down. It's not worth it, just shut it down. But I sort of persevered because I was like, I'm not going to, like, I can't give up. I've promised these animals, so I'm not giving up on them ever. So I just kept trying to figure it out. So I started learning, legal stuff on the side. I started learning accounting on the side. There's a lot of work that goes into the back end to try to build a system. This is not like a Maidan where you just throw a bunch of animals and call it a shelter. This is like a very systematic operation with proper policies and SOPs and a proper way of doing everything, like a methodology I built over time. And then I was, very, very many times it was just like, I should just give up. It's pointless. This is what everybody would say to me. But somehow or the other, for example, I'll give you one example. When we had to move from location number 2 to location number 3, location number 2 we had to move because these people in the area said that they will file an FIR on us because we are keeping dogs and they bark. So I just got scared before wanting to, because I didn't want to take any risk or anything. So I just got up and decided, look, let's just move. It was the rains. It was in fact July, so it was like monsoon season. And in monsoon season, I don't know where I went and through who I found a piece of land that I took for rent for, I think, 12,000 rupees. And that I'd like to temporarily just rent this area until I find another one, because I'm going to have a case filed against me because I'm caring for animals. So I need to leave. So I took that place. So it was like pouring down rain. It was crazy. And within one night, I had welders come in. They sort of removed all of our iron structures. We put everything on different Shizors and Suzukis. 250 animals. I rented a bunch of Shizors. I picked up all the animals, just me, another girl who worked with me, and two of my helpers. It was just 4 of us in the middle of the night. We were literally drenched in the rain, and we moved to this open Maidan from a very beautifully made shelter that we had where we were, which was a proper building and everything. We had to move to a Maidan where there was literally nothing. There was no electricity, there was no water, there was no drainage, there was nothing. So we were practically like swimming in sludge while the welders were trying to work overnight to build the basic roofs and all, so that there was shelter over there. And I think my manager Vajiha and I spent like maybe 2 nights not sleeping, just sitting in that sludge, toweling dry our animals and trying to build platforms to make sure that they were okay and that none of them fell ill. Because do remember, these are all rehabilitated animals, already injured and abused animals that we get. So it was like a nightmare and a half. And then while we were at that place, and the landlord saw how hard we were working, he was like, look, I have another location that I can show you as well. You can rent that. So that's where we are today. We rented the place, and over the last 3.5 years, we built location number 4 into like a 1-acre big sanctuary right now that houses about 600 animals. So this is like a rough idea as to what we've been through. There's been a hell of a lot more.
What have you learned over the years from your work?
It's more like, I guess, what we do is we pick up all the abused and injured animals off the streets, right? Like all those animals who nobody pays attention to. They think they're dirty and they're horrible, and they just like, no one cares about them. And it's true, no one cares. And no one has cared, because in over 70 years of Pakistan's existence, nobody has ever done anything substantial for animals. You cannot have a civilized society if you're not going to do anything for the most vulnerable. Because unless we don't learn to respect life for life itself, we will always be intolerant towards all the issues that plague human beings. Because it is impossible to be tolerant of each other or to respect each other or like each other unless we've actually learned tolerance at the root. And the root is the most vulnerable. And the problem is, in schools over here, in education systems, in our culture overall, animals are seen as being dirty, or they're seen as just being ignored or not as worthy. We actually believe that this universe was created just for us, and that the entire world revolves around us, and that we are entitled to having the world the way we want it. And if it doesn't work out our way, then we blame the world. And the thing that animals teaches you is an actual of humility and humbleness that you cannot learn anywhere else. I'm basically a human psychotherapist that works with animals, and the amount I've learned about human behavior through the medium of animals is shocking, because not only like I have dealt with the worst kind of human beings that take joy in hurting and abusing animals, and I have seen those poor animals who have done nothing. Their only crime was to be born, and they are born and they are meant to live a life of misery and pain, and then they die, and there's no justice for them.
You don't like to be called an animal rights activist, and we greatly appreciate your work. Is there a specific reason behind it?
The reason I said I don't like being called an animal activist is because I don't see myself as any form of an activist. I don't like that term because it separates you, and it makes it about us and other. And I don't like that, because that almost gives people a reason not to support the cause, because they don't identify as activists themselves. So I would just prefer to say, look, a decent human being would morally care about all living beings. So it's not about being an animal activist, it's about being a decent human being. If you call yourself a decent human being, then you must adhere to some standards of morality that any average decent human being would adhere to. So I think calling anyone an activist, frankly, I'm against categories overall, but calling anyone an activist is separating them from the other to unnecessarily create a divide that doesn't need to exist and should not exist. It needs to, and that actually gives people more of a reason to not want to do something. But if you say that this is what a decent human being does, then people think, oh, well, I'm a decent human being. But then the standards of morality must also highlight that. And I think that's where we lose out. Another thing I don't really appreciate about like the way we live in this country, our culture, is that we are very okay with being mediocre. You know, everything is mediocre. Nothing is at par of excellence. You know, as long as we get by and we can take shortcuts to do something, just let it slide. I hate that. Like, I believe in excellence. Like my brand, I build it to be excellent. Otherwise, I wouldn't do something. And the problem over here is, even with what we call a good person, the person we call a good person in general terms of morality, they are in fact not good people, because they have the greatest selective empathy ever. So that doesn't make you a good person unless you really challenge your beliefs and your culture and your norms to do what is right overall. So that's how I see it. So I don't like calling myself anything in particular. I just say I'm a regular person doing something that everyone should be doing.
Thank you. Your work in animal welfare speaks for itself. Ayesha Chundrigar, the founder of First Animal Rescue and Shelter in Pakistan.